Hey, NEA, welcome to the second episode of the NEA Podcast, sponsored by The Busy Bean, open 7 days a week to keep you buzzing with 6 amazing locations. For the month of April, make sure you check out the Butterbean Frappe, the Cattleberry Latte, and the Sweetie Bee Slush. Today, we get to hang out with an extremely successful local entrepreneur, Mr. Jonathan Russell, the owner and CEO of Premier Properties and Rentals. Let's get started. Let's dive in. All right, what's up, NEA? Today we got the CEO of Premier Properties. How you doing, buddy?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So give me the hero's journey on Premier Properties and what brought you into the industry.
Yeah, for sure. I think I've always had the entrepreneurial spirit. I owned a trucking company in my 20s as far as my first company. But when I say trucking company, it was one truck with me as the owner, driver, mechanic, everything. So I did that for a few years, and I loved the business side of it. I just didn't like the travel, and just the driving part kind of got me burned out on it. And then somewhere through there, I got offered a job with a company based out of Chicago. We had a warehouse here in Jonesboro, and it was just a route to Chicago once or twice a week. So I went ahead and took that since I was kind of not enjoying the one trucking company quite as much anymore. So I did that, and it was great. I had a good salary, but the main thing was just went to Chicago a couple of days a week. So left a lot of flexibility, kind of really think about what I wanted to do and kind of go from there. And so around 2012 or at 2012, bought the first house, and it was a HUD foreclosure. And honestly, when I bought it, we had no intentions of really doing it as an investment. It was just somewhere cheap that we needed a house, so we just went that route. And so we lived there for 2 years, then sold it, fixed it up, did all the work ourselves, sold it. Um, so that was 2014, and when that sale happened, kind of made some decent profit, and kind of that's when the kind of light bulb went off about real estate. It was I hate the word easy because it was challenging, but it was very simple. It was just you buy the house, fix it up nice, then resell it, and you keep the difference. It was very wasn't too much to it as far as the fundamentals of it, and so that's kind of what the light bulb went off. So at that point, it's 2014, and I was still driving the truck for the Chicago company. And what I loved about that even more at that time was, driving 14 hours a day, even those couple of days, that was 28 hours a week. I was just soaking up podcasts, audiobooks, anything with real estate I could get my hands on. So I like to say I have a degree just in from those travels, just all that content I was able to absorb. So 2014 bought another house to flip. And in 2016 started buying rentals. That's when I kind of went into the rental game and loved it. Everything was still going great. Then 2017, I get a call on a Friday. It was when Meredith and I first started dating around the same time. And my boss from Chicago calls me, says that they're downsizing and closing down the Jonesboro part, or downsizing it. And so it was basically someone that fired me. And I was like, okay, when is that effective? He's like, today. And so I was like, okay. So that was kind of a fork in the road for sure. I had two choices: either go try to find another job, or just kind of go full board into the real estate. And it was like a 5 second thought. I just directly just went, okay, I'm going to do full time, real estate now. And thankfully, from 2016 to 2017, when that happened, we had 12 doors at that point. So I did have a small minimum to kind of keep rolling. And then we just kind of been off to the races since then.
That's awesome. So at that point, it's kind of a point a lot of entrepreneurs get to with their day job. Like, okay, never again. I've had enough.
Yes.
I'm never going to get that phone call ever again. Right.
Yeah, right.
So, who were your favorite influencers when you were gearing up to go do this thing?
Yeah, no, to your question, that's that's exactly right as far as the because I would love to say I had the guts to just say I'm quitting, and if I had to get fired for me, then it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Just kind of kick out the window I needed. Because who knows? I would love to say I would have eventually done it, but you never know. It's hard to leave that comfort zone, and I was kind of forced out of it. To kind of use that as an opportunity to get going. As far as the influencers, really, like I said, because everything was business and real estate as far as those podcasts and audiobooks and Bigger Pockets. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but it's a big real estate podcast. And they also have a pretty big website, their social media type site that I was tried to be active on starting off. And then also Rod Khleif, who is still a friend and mentor to me today. He has a very popular podcast that I would soak up weekly. And then I'm still a fanboy of Grant Cardone. I enjoy all his content. So those kind of the main three that I really focused on. But pretty much all of it, I just soaked in as much as I could.
Grant Cardone's got a great personality.
Yeah,
I like
yeah,
hearing him talk too.
for sure, for sure.
So, where do you think you're going next with Premier Properties? Where do you think you would be in the next 10 years, far into the future?
Yeah, 10 years we're planning on being at 500 doors. That's the kind of, and as of today, we're at 136. So that's kind of the goal going forward is just to keep growing and really, because we absolutely transitioned into an operating company now. Like we're not just landlords and tenants, like we're providing a service. And that's really the mindset I tried to have in place since door one is like the tenants are paying their money for a service. That way, when something happens, you fix it, and that's what they're paying for. So, kind of really had that whole mindset since door one. But in the past year, I was able to bring all my management in house and hire my own staff and own maintenance staff now. So we're 100% as far as the day to day activities in house. So it's really allowed us to hone in that. Well, one thing I was nervous about with that was how quickly was able to grow with that. But last year when we first brought everything in house, we was at 100 doors, and we're at the 136 now, and have 12 more closing next month. So that'll put us at 148. So we've almost doubled, even with being new as far as the operating company, bringing everything in house.
That's great. So, when somebody comes on with you and rents your properties, it's not just the property, it's the service.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Because that's what we offer. That's what separates us from everyone else. Because there's a lot of other great property management companies in town, but if you look at it, they really have two customers because they have the tenant they're trying to service, but they also have to answer to owners. Like if the owner is kind of on them to, we got to cut costs, we got to do this to kind of hit our numbers. They're kind of they're in a tough position, honestly, to kind of maintain kind of conflicting interests sometimes. But with us, we only manage properties that we own. So our tenant is our only customer. So they're always the priority.
Right on. So, what would be your process in finding the best people to go in and manage your properties?
Yeah, it can be a challenge because at the end of the day, no one's going to take care of things exactly the way you want to, and honestly, don't have a great answer for that because that's how come I eventually just decided to move everything in house. But I think the main thing is the communication. Like if you kind of whenever you're interviewing for your property manager, kind of make sure they're organized and make sure there's open communication because um, very few things are that big of a deal if you know about it. It's just when things go, you know, get overlooked or kind of you don't know what's going on, that's when things can kind of get goofy. So I would just say the organizational aspect of what they have and also the communication is a big deal.
Mhm. So, what does the day-to-day life as a CEO of Premier Properties look like from the time you get up in the morning to the time you finally get to go to bed?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's honestly not as packed as you might assume, and that's by design. Because even I kind of set it up that way on purpose from day one. Because I'm sure you've heard the saying, "Work on your business, not in your business." So I hired a rock star director of property management that handles the day to day stuff for us, and she handles everything terrifically. So I just focus on the high level, big picture stuff. You know, maintaining lending relationships is a huge deal because in all businesses, but real estate especially, it's very dependent on the financing aspect. So I still actively maintain and develop new lending relationships and just all the high level stuff as far as developing culture. And so as far as the day to day stuff, it's I normally go in around 8 and then knock out the emails, um, the morning meetings, then honestly just kind of take it day by day is kind of see what I try to deliberately stay out of the details of stuff to kind of let my team handle it. But there are situations where I need to, you know, step in if needed. And so it's honestly just day by day, but I'm blessed that's not too packed. It's just always my main focus is, like I said, the high level relationships. And of course, always finding new properties is something I still handle 100%.
Mhm. So, you had it in mind early in the beginning. I need to build this in such a way I don't have to do everything.
Yes, yes, because it has to be scalable. Like if
Mm.
you have to know, because I only have no matter what I do, I can't change time. So I only have 24 hours in a day. So the more and more I take on, it's actually to, um, not good for the business because it's not scalable. Like there's only, I can say I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, but it's not, you can't scale that. You have to be always looking at if you didn't even show up, you need to make sure your company's still running good. Because if it's not, that's a problem because that means it's too dependent on you and you're only one person. You can't keep a whole company going by yourself. So it's very important. The team, of course, is the people. Everything's people. And just make sure you give them the authority and power to handle things for you.
Right. That's something a lot of us learned the hard way.
Yeah.
For us NEA content, it was like, okay, that worked. How can I do this, 10 more times? How
Yes.
can I automate it? You know what? How about I get it started and then I hand it off and then I can do the next thing? So
Right.
that's really cool. You had that in mind, early on. What
Yeah.
were some of the hard lessons that you had to learn the hard way?
Oh, there's there's quite a few. I mean, it's just like for example, the lending aspect of it. When I first started, I was just young and naive, and I just assumed, as long as you kept a good relationship, one bank could do whatever you wanted to do. But now I know that's like crazy to think because all banks, nothing to do with you, but all banks are going to limit their risk and they're not going to give, you know, one person entire portfolio or, crazy amounts of money. So, um, so kind of the story behind that, we kind of got six that first year, kind of got six knocked out pretty quick with one bank. And then it was just like a roadblock. Like, okay, we just got to get these stabilized and kind of go from there. And that was kind of the first wake up call that it's going to take multiple sources. So, mistakes aren't a problem as long as you don't repeat them. So ever since then, that was the first mistake I made, only having one bank. But ever since then, that's been one of the main priorities to have multiple banks. So I think then the other one is just could have been bad. Like one of the houses we bought had really bad termites, which when we bought it, I knew it did, but I had no idea it was as bad as it is. Like peeling an onion. Just the more we tore out, the more. Like if I, in hindsight, if I could do it over again, I just would have bulldozed the house and built new. But so the lesson there is kind of be more due diligence. Kind of really focus on your due diligence. That's very important. But honestly, I'm kind of torn on that sometimes though, because that massive action, just keep buying, that mindset. Yeah, I just like to turn my house. I'll stub my toe every once in a while because I just was going too fast, to sum it up. But that going too fast and massive action, the net is positive because I wouldn't have bought as many as I did if I didn't have that attitude. So that was a mistake, but that just constant growing mindset has actually benefited me a lot more than it's ever hurt me. But there has been some stumped toes in the process.
That's good. I think Grant Cardone and Gary Vee kind of cover that. Move fast. You'll
Yes.
screw up. Just fix
Yeah.
it. Keep moving.
Yeah. I
That's
like to think
awesome.
of like imagine a boulder or something rolling down a hill. Like if it's going slow, just a pebble will stop it. But if it's going fast enough, you can put a log in front of it. It's just going to bounce over and keep going. So, I mean, speed and momentum are the most underrated things there are.
That's an awesome comparison. I
Yeah.
want to remember that.
Yeah, for sure. For
I
sure.
want to use that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me see. All right. What are some key motivators that really keep you going when stuff gets tough?
I mean, it's very cliche, but it's just the truth. It's just your why. Like you got to remember why you're doing it. And so your family, like my family, is important because I always say that, yeah, we have a great life and we live well, but my sons are the ones who's really going to benefit from all this. So just kind of keeping the bigger picture in mind always. I like to say zoom out because you can get caught up in the day and like today was a terrible day. Like you just went down and you look at the graph for today, it did go down. But if you zoom out and see where you was 5 years ago, you're trending drastically upwards. So I think if you just keep that in mind and kind of, as long as you're in the big picture moving forward, you're okay. Like don't um, learn from the bad days and don't just ignore them and like focus on why it was bad and improve it. But just know that the good outweighs the bad. Like you just zoom out and just keep the big picture in mind.
Right on.
Mm.
So, for anyone just getting started, let's say somebody that is interested and they're just getting started today,
Mm.
what do you think would be the first best step?
I think definitely, um, do the knowledge. I mean, the internet's packed full of knowledge. I mean, podcasts, books. I mean, there's really no reason to not be educated on what you're trying to do. But I would say definitely do that. But there's a limit to that. Don't get analysis paralysis. Like you can study all day long, but actually going out and doing it, you're gonna learn 100-fold, like much better. So as far as the first step, it's gonna vary um, for people because depending on what their personal situation is, if they have a high end W-2 job that they can just looking for something for retirement, their first step is just calling their favorite realtor and finding a decent property and putting the money down and just build it that way. But if you're younger and don't have that W-2 income, there's construction policies you can get and kind of the rougher properties that are much more risky and much more challenging, no doubt, but the potential reward is much higher. So as far as someone's first step, that's going to vary drastically by you know whatever they're doing.
Right. I think y'all's first step was pretty interesting too. Your first property was actually your home,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Right.
So then, while you were living there, you built up the price and the value
Hmm.
and all that. And then, you scaled up from there.
Right. Right. That's
Right.
definitely that's kind of what opened my eyes because And so I guess, now that we're kind of talking it out, the first step would be make the decision that you're going to do it. Because 2012, I bought that first one and then was just still just kind of doing it. But when I sold it in 2014, that's when I made the decision like, okay, I'm doing this, real estate thing. So I think that's someone's first step. You got to make the decision. Grant Cardone speaks about that too a lot. Like you just make the decision to do it and then you go from there.
All right, for the sake of a good story, what is the most interesting day you've had so far in the life of the owner of Premier Properties?
Oh, there's been plenty. It's kind of hard to sum up into just a couple, but probably I know one deal. It was a for sale by owner. We was buying as a house on um, West End here in Jonesboro, and a younger girl was selling it, and she was pregnant, and so I was talking with her some, and also her mom, and then we kind of went back and forth. It was kind of a drug out process as far as longer than normal as far as negotiation, but it was like a week or two we finally had everything pinned down, and so we got the contract typed up. It wasn't signed yet. Well, she goes into labor, and so I just took the contract up to the hospital, and they was completely on board with it because they was ready to get it signed too. So they actually met the.
That's good that they weren't like, "Are you kidding me?"
Yeah, exactly. I definitely asked before I.
That's good.
So they was ready to get the ball rolling too, for sure. So I actually met the mom in the little waiting room, and she took the contract back to the guess the delivery room. I guess then the daughter signed and brought it back out. So I guess she signed in between pushes or whatever happened then. I think enough times passed. If we broke any laws doing that, I think we're okay. Well, I don't think she was too sedated to sign the contract, but I think it worked out fine.
Right on. They're probably impressed.
Yeah.
Like, man, this guy's diligence, though.
Right,
You're like,
right.
we're doing
Yeah.
this no matter what's going on.
I think they wanted to get rid of the house as much as I wanted to buy it, so it was a good win-win situation.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, if you could pick one property that you were extremely proud of over all else, what has been like the most awesome property you've acquired so far?
I mean, I honestly love all of them. It's because they all add, but as far as probably the best one is we own some apartments here downtown Jonesboro, and we bought that one in, I believe it was 2018. So at that time, downtown was doing good, but once you get, more west end, there wasn't too much going on. I mean, Main Street was already redone, but past that wasn't too much going on. So it was pretty rough area and rough condition when we bought that, and which it still did fine. But since then, as you well know, everything's boomed that way. Just going more west end. So that one's by far the biggest home run, but that was just pure luck, honestly, because I didn't buy it with the intentions of, I just had some kind of grand scheme that I knew downtown was going to move that way, and it was just a good property. The property worked, and then we just kind of got lucked into the appreciation side of it just because of everything else that went on around it. So I think that was luck, but we deserved that luck because we took the risk to buy it. So people who don't buy anything, they'll never be lucky because they don't have anything to be lucky with. So
Right. I've seen those apartments. They do look pretty nice over there. I had no idea you own those.
Yeah.
Downtown has been moving that way. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, it's it's going to continue to do so. Like the entire West End is going to be completely different in a few years. So it's all good things.
Right on. So we covered the most interesting story. What has been an absolute nightmare for you, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, probably. And this story was probably the final straw about bringing everything in house that we talked about, because I was still using third party property managers, and it was time for a an appraisal because the just was restructuring the loan or whatever. I forgot the exact situation, but for whatever reason, we had to get an appraisal on it. And so um, I met the appraiser there, and then the tenant was telling us that the house is really dirty. And I was like, okay, it's no big deal. We're not we're not here to inspect you. We're just taking some pictures and just be in and out. Well, when I walked in, it was just instantly got sick. It was just the most disgusting, crazy house you ever seen. Just I mean, the TV show Hoarders. Just imagine that on steroids. It was just terrible.
On steroids.
Yeah, yes, it was just. I mean, it's so, and that was disgusting. Then I had an appraiser come in 5 minutes, so it was just
5 minutes.
Yeah.
You
So
had
it was
5 minutes.
Yeah, and I didn't even try to touch anything because it was pointless. I mean, there was no way to make it look any better. So that was, so that was embarrassing at some levels because that was my property. Even though I had someone managing it for me or supposedly managing it for me, it was, it's still my name on it. So,
Right.
and that was just kind of like, because that didn't happen overnight. So, that was just a couple years there of me not managing it directly myself that let it get that bad. So, the kind of how we overcame it and how we, that was again the kind of the final straw to bring it back in house. And then once we got it in house, we was able to um, have that tenant move along and then get it cleaned up and go from there. And it's actually we remodeled it and it still have the house and it's really good now. So it all worked out fine, but that was a stressful and eye-opening day.
Right. And rather than just, blaming the tenant and feeling like a victim, you saw it as an internal problem so that you
Yes,
could
for
fix
sure.
it and it not happen again.
Absolutely, yeah, because you have to take responsibility of everything. Because again, even though I had a property management company handling that for me, that was still my property, so I couldn't, you know, again, so I had to make decisions after that accordingly. And again, in hindsight, again, it was probably one of the better days because that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back and moved everything in house, and everything's been rocking a lot better since. So it all worked out well.
Right. So the premier properties in the title, means actual premier properties,
Yeah.
premier maintenance. A lot of people like to hide behind fancy branding and names, but you guys obviously actually mean it.
Yeah, for sure. And
That's great.
Yeah, and Premier doesn't have to mean high budget because we have properties that rents as low as in the 600s or seven. So we have sort of lower end as far as price point properties, but no matter if a tenant's even paying 400 a month, everything should still be functional, everything should still be safe, everything should still be clean. So those no matter what someone's paying, those things should always be done. And then the higher up you go, you can have nicer stuff and make it nicer. But even if it's something's kind of on a lower budget scale, again, everything's functional, everything's clean, and everything's safe and working good.
That's great.
Right.
So your tenants know everything's going to be taken care of. Your new tenants know things are going to be nice when they walk in. And for you, your properties keep the value.
Yes, for sure, for sure. It's a win-win because, and we're human. Things fall through the cracks, absolutely. But again, we just stand behind it. If a mistake happens, we own it and we fix it. Because we had for an example, we had a property that it's actually a property that Meredith and I lived in for a bit, but just water would continually get in some points. And I thought we had it fixed while we lived there because we put a French drain, we invested all kinds of stuff to try to get it fixed, and then actually this year the water kind of started showing back up again, and I had that conversation with the tenant, like because we tried a few different things, and I said I can't guarantee. I said water is tricky, so I can't guarantee that it's going to be fixed today. I said, but I promise we won't stop until it's fixed. And after a couple of weeks of trying some stuff, it's fixed now, so it's all working well. But tenants are understanding. They understand things happen as long as they feel like they're being heard and you care. They're a lot more. They feel better about the whole situation as well.
Right. That's customer service, and that's life.
Yeah.
Things are going to get missed, stuff's going to happen, but
Mhm.
we're going to take care of it.
Yeah.
All right. So that's great. You got to the point where you are able to hand off everything. But was there a path to getting to that point?
Yeah, absolutely. So, kind of talk about I was at 12 doors when I went full time with it. So when I went full time, I was self managing 100%. Did a lot of maintenance myself. I still had contractors I used on the bigger stuff, but all the basic stuff I tried my best to handle myself. So kind of did that and really got up to 30 was kind of the tipping point where I kind of
30
yeah,
doors
30
or
doors,
okay.
correct. Yeah, 30 doors. Kind of got to the tipping point where I started kind of feeling overwhelmed. Um, and we had the time frames a little blurry on me as far as what year it was, but there was a stretch there where we went from 30 doors to 50 within just a very few months, short period of time. And it was just kind of like, whoa, this is way too much for me. So I kind of dumped everything onto a property manager. So in hindsight, I made that decision to, you know, drastically. If I was handling 35 by myself, probably would have been better just to handle those extra 20 off to the property manager, see how it goes, and kind of go that route. But I didn't, and in that first company I used, which they're a great company, they very successful in town. It just wasn't a great fit for me, just the way I like to handle things, because I'm again more hands on, and that's you know the whole point of a property management company is for you not to be hands on. So it's just kind of a clash there, which is understandable. But so I kind of picked up all that pretty quickly, as far as like, okay, I'm not going to enjoy having a property management company, but I just used it as an avenue just to grow my doors, because the problem was, even at 50, it was too much for me to do myself, but it wasn't enough for me to hire a staff internally. So I was kind of that stuck in the middle phase. So I just grew as fast as I possibly could. Then when we got to the 100 mark, was able to bring all of that back in. So you had to have, and since then I've been able to still grow, but at that 100 mark was a good round number as far as doors to bring all that in house and kind of have it in my own company. And that was the by far the best thing we've ever done. And I kind of always predicted that, but you have to. I'm a big believer in scale and growth, because you have to have some sort of business to run, because you can be the world's greatest investor, like greatest maintenance guy. You have the best systems on earth, but if you have three properties, you're not going to make, it's not going to be too successful because you only have three. So there has to be some scale for you to then to really iron out your systems and your company.
Right. And it seems like, there's this flawless way to scale you hear on YouTube and the internet, and then you get started, and it's like you grow, you hit a wall, and then it's like, okay, I can't do all this stuff. You
Yeah,
scale, you hit another wall,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So it's good to hear from more successful entrepreneurs down the road that that's normal.
Yes,
It's okay to not be able to hire all these people right off the get go. And there's always that middle spot where you're not exactly making enough profit to hire yet. But if you don't, you're not going to grow either. But then when you finally do it, you excel. You excel
yes.
forward.
Yeah, there's a few things with that. You have to, most importantly, you have to stay ahead of it, because you don't want to get in a situation, which I've been in several times, that like, okay, I'm kind of tangled up here. I need to figure something out. You should always try to stay ahead of that. Like, even in our company now, I try to stay ahead of the hires. Like, okay, we get 30 more doors, I'm going to need to hire someone else, whether it be maintenance, office, whatever that is. Well, I probably need to go ahead and hire them today. That way, when we get those 30, well, they'll be trained and we'll never miss a beat. So the problem is you wait till you need them, and then you're kind of stuck because it's a process to hire someone, train them, and so trying to always stay ahead of that is a big deal. And that's a great point you made about the walls. And you'll kind of get differing opinions on this if you talk to other entrepreneurs, but that's probably the main reason why I believe in speed and quickly growing is because if you're going fast enough, you'll just blast through those walls. Because there's situations I look back in hindsight and like the situation, whether it be financially or whatever it was, I was kind of when I look back on it today, I was like, that was pretty sketchy. Like I was probably on the verge of bankruptcy there or something.
Right.
But I said it never even crossed my mind while I was in it. I was just focused going forward. I was like, we'll just do this and move on. So I think to me, speed and it's been the most beneficial thing on that aspect of it.
Right. I like how you mentioned, getting better at seeing the walls coming, and
Yes.
preparing
Yeah.
for those.
Mm-hmm.
So not only are you picking up speed, but you're accelerating and getting better at keeping the speed going,
Yes.
so you can hit through those walls and you start to see those walls coming.
Yeah,
That's super interesting.
and being self aware. Like you have to know your strengths and weaknesses. Like how some people will say, um, you know, and just improve your weaknesses. But I say focus on what you're good at. And like what I'm good at is lending relationships and finding their doors. I'm not the greatest. I'm probably a terrible property manager as far as actual day to day operations, but that's like I hired the best property manager in town as far as my internal director. So that's you hire out your weaknesses, and that's one thing that took me a while to catch on to, but it's been the most beneficial thing recently.
So in the beginning, were you trying to redo the floors yourself and painting and all that?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Was that a nightmare or?
In hindsight, yes. Now I think about it, it's I like I'd hate to think about it, um, but during the time though it wasn't because I enjoyed it and I just knew what I was working towards. So again, kind of in looking back on hindsight, you're like that was a lot of work, but it didn't feel like it at the time at all. It was fun and just exciting every day, and still is. It's just a different things going
Right
on.
on. That's a really good perspective to have. It's funny what motivation coupled with determination and
Mhm.
discipline can really push you through.
Yeah,
Like one of them won't keep you up themselves, but those put together, you go through some stuff and you look back a few years later and it's like, I don't even know.
yeah, for sure,
I
for
don't know
sure.
how I did that, but I did it,
Yeah, 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 yeah. You just keep going. It's like you can't just go blindly. You have to have a vision, know what you're working towards, but um, just keep going. Keep going no matter what, and just never quit. Because there's been plenty of times where um, any normal person, any sane person, probably would have quit, but you just have to have like you're not quitting, like you're just gonna keep going. And as long as you keep doing that, time takes care of everything else, especially in real estate. Like as long as you can just survive, especially starting off, just keep going, make your payments, take care of your tenants, just keep going. In real estate, time will take care of everything else for you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, any level of entrepreneurship seems so impossible,
Mm-hmm.
but it seems way more realistic, when you realize, at one point the owner of Premier Properties was in houses trying to refloor them,
Mm-hmm.
himself and do all these crazy things. So it's really cool to get an inside scoop on, your humble beginning.
Yeah, for sure.
So one of the reasons I brought you in today is because on social media you seem to always have this really great entrepreneurial perspective. You're always ready for what's next, you're always moving forward, and you're always kind of putting that motivation out there to share with everyone else. So if we could get in your head and kind of get a glimpse of that entrepreneurial fire you have inside that keeps you moving, can you kind of explain your perspective on life and what keeps you going? Not just the why, but the fire, the little things you do in life that really keep you moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. I think, and I appreciate all that. And that's as far as social media goes. I just try to, um, like, I think I got it from Gary Vee, but he says, document, don't create. Like, I think too many people try to figure out what they're posting. I just have simply always just told what I'm doing.
Right,
And
just be a
yeah,
human.
yeah, just like
you know
if I'm buying a house, I post I bought a house. If I'm fixing up a house, I post I fixed up a house. Like I've just kept it, just you know, simply documenting what I'm doing. And some people like it, some people don't. But I think overall, I know overall it's been positive for me. So I think as far as the just that fire, I do think that's hard to teach someone. I think it's something you might be born with. It's just either you have it or you don't. But I think it's just a constant nature of never giving up because everything's hard. I mean that 2017 that we kind of touched on before, but what we didn't talk about was that. So in the middle of 2017, I went through a divorce, and that's never fun for anyone involved. So went through all that. And after the dust settled on that, I met my current wife Meredith, and that was all going great. And then um, December of that year, get the phone call that we talked about with me losing my job, and so made it through that and dust settled on that quickly because I just went full forward into real estate. And then just I believe it was 10 days or 2 weeks later, Meredith has a car wreck and is paralyzed um, for a time being. She's multiple surgeries, and she you know did great through all that. She's relatively fine today, and but that was a year worth of therapy and everything else. That was when we just started dating. So I think you know always seeing the big picture and always seeing that everything happens for a reason. So just to kind of sum up that quote unquote terrible year, it was a great year because as far as the first two things for sure, because the way I look at it, the divorce happened so I could meet my wife, and I got fired from my job so I could take care of my wife after her surgery, after her wreck. So, I believe that, God or whatever your beliefs might be, there's always a bigger picture, guiding you, whether you know it or not.
And that bigger picture depends on you. You got
Yeah.
to see it as a bigger picture.
Hmm.
You got to know that happened for a reason.
Yeah.
The mind is pretty powerful when it comes to things like that.
Absolutely. Like we talked about, zoom out. Like, see, it might be just a terrible dumpster fire day, but if you kind of zoom out, your terrible day today was hopefully would have been a great day 5 years ago. So like you're always trending upwards, where you should be, just kind of zoom out. And the kind of flip side of that, sometimes you zoom out and kind of see stuff might not be trending upwards. So it's just important to be self aware and make adjustments accordingly, whether good or bad.
Right. And you can really use the bad things to power your
Mm-hmm.
growth. And sometimes it's like, man, good thing I learned that lesson the hard way a few years ago, because if it would have happened today, it would have cost me way more money. It could have been way more, hurtful to your business. Failure is all about, adapting. Okay, what, I have data. How can I use this to grow? You
Yeah.
know,
Mm-hmm.
and like you said earlier, some people are born with it, and for some people, they just have to light the fire on their own.
Yeah.
Whether
Mm-hmm.
it be getting fired from a job
Mm-hmm.
or something happens, or
Yeah.
you've had enough. Like, okay,
Yeah.
today's the day.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I've said before that I think to be a successful, a legit top tier entrepreneur, I think you have to be a little bit crazy because because any normal person wouldn't do it because it's you have your ups and downs. You're like, what am I doing? Just go. A sane person would go do something else, but you just have to love it, and just keep pushing forward. And all that stuff is cliche, and you hear it 1,000 times, but you hear it 1,000 times because it's true. Like it's the fact of the matter.
Hmm. Even if you have the wrong idea on the life of an entrepreneur at the beginning, once you get started,
Mm.
it's not as easy as you thought it'd be. But you're like, okay, I love this. Like, there's
Yeah,
no way I can go back. So
yeah,
you said you were
yeah.
kind of born with that spirit. Was it? Blah. I'll edit that out. Some entrepreneurs were like selling ice cream at the beach at like 10 or 12. Is there anything you were doing, as a young kid? Or did you just start
Yeah.
this in like 2017?
No, I think as far as a kid, my family always owned their own business, so kind of always had that entrepreneurial. I grew up in an entrepreneurial home, so
That's good.
so kind of always understood that.
So if we could close with the fiery, passionate mission statement behind Premier Properties, what would it be?
Yeah, to keep it, the elevator pitch is simply, the tenant is our only customer. Like we're completely customer focused. So like other places you might rent from in town, they're great companies, but have to keep in mind they have two customers. They have the owner of the properties they have to answer to as far as what they can and can't do, and also then they have to take care of the tenant as well. So that can definitely be a challenge, and you know, kudos to them for what they can do with that. But for us, Premier Properties, it's we don't have that. We only manage properties we own. So the tenant, if you rent from us, you're our only and number one priority. Like no matter what um, level of property, budget type property you get from us, they're going to be well maintained and taken care of, and everything's going to be functional. And we're just highly focused on customer service.
Right on. So it's not just a Premier property, it's a Premier experience. When you rent for Premier Properties, it's going to be well taken care of, it's well kept.
Yes,
And for current tenants, if anything happens, you guys are on it.
for sure. For
That's
sure.
awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, Russell, thanks for coming on today.
Yeah,
It was super
absolutely, man.
awesome to get to meet you guys.
For sure. Thanks for having us.
No problem at all. Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming.